listening to the Game Informer Show. This is a special edition podcast. It centers around Tomb Raider, which is our newest cover, and there's been obviously a lot of excitement about this cover story online. It's a bit of a reboot of the entire Tomb Raider franchise. Today we're lucky to be joined by a couple guys from Crystal Dynamics who have a really big role in making the game. Karl Stewart.
Hello.
And Karl is the global brand director. And Tim Longo.
Hi.
And Tim is the franchise director. I'm also joined, obviously, by Meagan Marie, who wrote our story, did a great job on that, and Matt Miller, who was also on the trip and is pretty familiar with Tomb Raider as well. But basically, the idea of this podcast is we had people on our website submit questions. We just wanted the fans of Tomb Raider to be able to kind of pick your guys' brains about the direction that the series is going. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Meagan, and we are going to just put you guys' feet to the fire.
Rapid fire some questions. We had a fantastic turnout on the website in our call for questions. A lot of things that people want answered, so I'm excited to get through these. So we'll just start right away.
A lot of people excited about Tomb Raider.
Yes,
so that's
excellent. So the amount of questions makes us somewhat nervous.
I think you guys are definitely the foremost experts, though, so we're in good hands.
I suspect the people listening to this podcast are a friendly audience. I think a lot of people are eager to hear whatever they can learn about the project. So
that being said, we apologize if we can't answer your question. We tried to break them down into general subjects and cover all topics, but the turnout for the questions was impressive, so we had to be a bit selective. That being said, we'll start with a slight doozy of a question, one that we kind of had. We heard this a couple different ways, but Zebra3 asks, between the new and darker imagery, story, and general tone, the game is a radical departure from the previous Lara Croft adventures. Can this still be called a Tomb Raider game? And similarly, Charugai asks, while characters have personality traits, I feel their history and their decisions are paramount to their character development. Without Laura's 1996 through 2008 history, how do you propose you'll convey that this is the character we know and love? So those are just two general questions about the reboot that the fans are looking to have answered.
Awesome. I'm looking at Tim. He's going to have to answer this one.
Wow, those are doozies and really awesome questions too. I think I guess the first thing that I'd say is that we've been very very aware that there's certain iconic things about her that we don't want to change, and we want that new tone. And as he mentioned, darker, grittier, and sort of those words come to mind. But I think one thing that the cover really captured, which I was excited about, is that when you look at the cover, you still see a Lara Croft there, and so. Something we talked about is that we felt like we needed to modernize the franchise, and even though the 90s Lara had certain things about her that we all came to love and recognize, there's still those same things can be seen in a new light, we think, and we're kind of telling the story of how she became a Tomb Raider, which you really didn't get in the previous one. She kind of started out with all of her abilities and faculties, and sort of she was already there at the apex, and we wanted to kind of start from ground zero and build that up. And again, for a modern generation, we need her to fit in with all the other big franchises out there, and she was fitting in quite well in the 90s, but that kind of hit its peak, and so we want to find all of those things about her that we love and just show them in a new light. That's basically it.
And I think the core thing that we want to make sure fans appreciate is that we're not changing the pillars of what it means to be Tomb Raider or Lara Croft. Ultimately, what we're doing is, and both of you hear me say it more than once when you were here, is making her culturally relevant. We've done a lot of research and study and look at some of those kind of iconic characters throughout all media. I think the two that people would relate to most is Batman and the James Bond and what they've done of recent years. In that, ultimately, the new Batman, the pillars haven't changed for him. He's still a bit of a vigilante. He still becomes Batman. But they just tell the story in a way that people look at it and feel like it's of this generation. It's not of that sort of Adam West old-school generation of how Batman became Batman. I think we're taking a similar slant in that, just making it that Lara is more relevant to today's gamers.
Well, I think that maybe leads in well to something a couple other readers were asking about, which was kind of some more specifics about what Lara Croft herself was going to be like in this game. One of our readers, Philip Wessels, asked if Lara's character evolution, if it if it will end somewhere closer to the classic Lara. In other words, are we going to see some of the iconic sort of ensemble emerge in the game, like her dual pistols or her backpack? And Addison Croft, another reader, asked kind of a similar question. What are Lara's acrobatic capabilities, and how are they going to evolve as the game progresses?
Well, we definitely want to have those memorable moments, iconic moments, but I don't think we're really, we're not ready to talk about the specifics of how the game will end or any of those, which ones of those we're going to actually, show in the actual game. But I think one of the, like I was mentioning before, one of the cool things is that from a character progression perspective, she's going to start off as a sort of, a naive, young, just out of school, ambitious archaeologist who has something to prove, and she's going to progress through the game in this survival situation and going to be tested time and time again. So we'll return to some of those iconic things that the fans, I think, will love, though we won't talk about those quite yet. But as she goes, she's going to really have a character change that you haven't seen before with this character. And again, before she's had all of her abilities, and so I think on the acrobatic side, we really look back to that survival tone that we've talked about before. That I think she's a physical, very athletic character just by nature. She's also a very intelligent character, but on the athletic side, she's going to have abilities that will allow her to get through all of the predicaments that she's in. But we look back to that survival thing, so there'll be some effort in her her move set. Mm-hmm. She's still physically fit, so she can achieve a lot. But she starts off the game kind of unsure of whether she can really go through this situation. And again, we kind of are going to put her through the meat grinder. So she's she's going to be using her tools. We talked about the pickaxe in the article a little bit, and so that'll be something that she'll be able to utilize from a movement perspective.
Okay. Another specific question about Laura. Damn Nature You Scary asks, who will voice Laura?
At this moment in time, we haven't made the final call. We have gone through dozens upon dozens of different voices, and it is a pretty tough job to try and find that voice that we feel is going to fit a generation. Whoever we choose, obviously, will be with us for a while. So right now, it's all about the experience in the game. I think before we choose the voice, we need to make sure that we have the experience nailed down. And from that, then, it's easier to find the right person. But let's just say the search is on, and we have listened to a lot of voices. It's really cool.
Well, we got another guy here, Poseidon7, who asked about, with the new Tomb Raider openly embracing an M rating, which is, I think, a quote from our story, has the studio taken into consideration the impact that this will have on their younger Tomb Raider fans? Which I thought was a kind of an interesting question. I'm sure it's something you guys have thought about.
I think it is definitely, when we made the decision to review the rating that we were going for and the story we were telling, of course, we took a number of key factors into consideration. From fans, from age group, and also retail and TV and advertising times, because it puts a major restriction on what you can and can't do having an M rating. And I think ultimately it boiled down to the experience we were trying to deliver in the game. We had spent a lot of time trying to sort of re-energize the franchise, and in order to do that, we had to tell a true story, one that, as you hear, is gritty, it's a little bit darker, and an M rating was the only way we had to do that. Tomb Raider's been around for an extremely long time, as we all know, like 15 years, and a lot of the fans have grown up with the franchise, and we felt that there was probably a large proportion of people who had now kind of moved out of that T rating into the M rating, and we're looking for something a little bit darker. So, of course, there are going to be fans, and there are fans who are still in that T bracket, and unfortunately, we had to make the call. It was about the experience, it was about the future of the franchise, and in order to tell that story, we needed to dip into an M. But what we will say is that we're not going into M for the sake of being M. Mm-hmm. Lara doesn't curse, and she doesn't do and say things just for the sake of doing it. It's all about story and experience. So she won't be dropping the F-bomb too many times, if at all.
I think that's something that fans will be. There's been a divide that I've seen that people are really excited about the M rating, and then other ones who are concerned that the violence would be gratuitous or something in nature. So it's good to hear that that'll be grounded in the narrative and the gameplay.
Yeah, we really want it to be motivated, and again, we're not doing it lightly by any means. It's not any sort of stunt. And I think early on in concept phase, one thing that I was excited about and really wanted to push Crystal to do is to commit to that. Instead of sort of playing the fence and trying to, kind of have our cake and eat it too, if we were going to actually tell this sort of survival story that we've been talking about and the article talks about, that we needed to get into that M space, at least some, so we can actually show what a real human's going to go through to do that. So I was really excited that people were willing to commit to that, rather than kind of play the fence on a teen and try to sort of half do it.
Okay.
And I think in all the research materials that Tim and the team have pulled together and myself to review to try and decide what survival means, there are some incidences that you watch in real life where people have had to make decisions on their own, and none more so than Aaron Ralston, who's a guy we were watching very closely, and Danny Boyle just made the movie 127 Hours, where that was a story of ultimate survival, and he had to do something that was above and beyond any human would ever want to have to go through. And I think that in itself is more psychological than it is the gore of having to cut your own arm off. And for one, just so we're on the record, Laura will not be cutting her arm off
Get that out there now.
anytime soon.
I tried it. They wouldn't do it.
But it's ultimately, you cannot tell that psychological story and give that experience through just the T rating. You have to be willing to get a little bit darker.
Okay. This is one that you guys probably won't be able to answer right now, but it just at the stage in development. But a lot of people are wondering how many hours of play they can expect from this installment, and that one was from Addison Croft.
Loads.
I
I think there's a benchmark which has to be hit, and I think without a doubt it's the 10-hour benchmark. We're aiming above that. Where we'll come in, we won't know for another few months, but let's just say that it won't be anywhere below 10 hours, that's for sure.
Okay.